Hi everyone. In this session I am just going to quickly show you how we can use some constraints and other tools to get the car attached and multiple cars attached to our path for the racing task. So what I've got here is I've just created a dummy, and dummies are a bit like splines in that they can't be rendered or they're not rendered by default. Which means they're really handy for controlling different aspects of the of our scenes. So I've just put that on there, put a path constraint onto our line, and put it at 50% so that it's just sat in the middle, and that now can't move anywhere other than along that line. So if I just make another box just to represent the car. I've not really got the time or the inclination to actually model a car. And if I put this on the path constraint, just to show, like in the previous video, this now moves along the line. It can't move anywhere else. But the downside to this is that if we then have the second car, because obviously the task is to make a race, so you need more than one vehicle. If I put this onto the path again, what happens when I move it is that it will collide with the other one. And okay, for a very quick, easy task, that's not the end of the world, but there's actually a better way of doing it, and it demonstrates how dummies and controllers can be made. You can it's like an introduction to creating controllers, I suppose, and using the link tool rather than path constraint. So we're going to keep the dummy there on the path with the path constraint. I'm just going to make a new box, rather than just break the link that we already did. And I'm going to just quickly call them 1 and 2 or whatever, just so I can work out which one is which. And that's a good practice to get into, because sometimes your work gets more complicated than you think it's going to, and I'm just going to colour them differently so I can see them, see the difference between them. And now what I'm going to do is, rather than do a path constraint, I'm going to actually do a link constraint onto the dummy that is already on the path constraint. So what happens here is that the red car now inherits the movement of the dummy on the path, but because it's a child, it is separate. It can move separately. So when I move the dummy, you notice that the red box moves, but when I move the red box, the dummy doesn't move. So I can sort of flip it and scale it and rotate it and do all sorts of things with it, but then when I actually want to move it, I can use the dummy to move it along the line. So I can kind of put this near the line as though it's on a racetrack, and I can just create a second dummy and put that as a path constraint onto our racetrack as well, because that will need to go on there. And then I can link the blue car to that one, so they each have their own dummy, and I've just made them slightly different sizes so that I can tell which one is which, or you can make them different shapes, or all sorts of things, or you could actually use another object. You don't just have to use dummies. And then if I just sort of put that near the road as well, and now when I move those dummies, I will be able to move the cars, and the cars will be able to overtake each other without crashing into each other, but they will they will still follow the line if you put the follow property on the path constraint for the dummy. And rather than keyframing the box percentage on the line like you did in the previous video, you can actually just keyframe the dummy on the line instead. So hopefully that helps.